Reservoir Dogs was directed by Quentin Tarantino, and it stars Harvey Keitel, Tim Roth, Michael Madsen, Steve Buscemi, and Chris Penn. And for this review, I will be joined by my good friend, Unique Frequency. Together, we will tag team this review, and yes, the suits were his idea.
The first scene of the movie starts off as a mukbang. Everyone's eating and talking about tipping. Here's what's really cool that not a lot of writers can do, which is making criminals human. I know other dialogue in other movies can pull this off. Pulp Fiction would shamelessly steal this idea 2 years later. Hey, that guy kind of looks very familiar.
Whoa. You know Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs was made by the same director.
Oh yeah, I knew that guy looked very familiar.
Some may say that this scene isn't really relevant to the plot, but you know, I don't really care because this scene manages to make the audience feel invested in our characters. And most of all, this is the first time the world was introduced to Tarantino's masterful use of dialogue. Tarantino manages to make dialogue scenes that aren't really relevant to the plot still feel important and intriguing.
In the opening credits, everybody is walking all calm and badass, but having no idea what's going to happen to them until it's too late. The music choice in this scene is iconic. Tarantino really knows how to start a film strong and builds tension throughout.
All of this abruptly ends after we hear the screams of our main character, Mr. Orange, after he just got shot. The editing here feels very abrupt, and usually this would be a negative thing, but honestly, for some reason, this just works.
This completely took me by surprise by the first time Anthill showed me this movie. The scene itself is a good way to not show the action, but the emotional moment. You can really feel Mr. Orange's pain and Mr. White's stress throughout the performance.
I love how this film just throws you right into the thick of the plot without any explanation or background. And as the film goes forward, you really get to see the plot unravel. This creates a lot of mystery and tension. Tarantino is just the master at being able to break the conventional rules of storytelling. This film mostly takes place in a warehouse, and this is because of the film's relatively low budget. They really couldn't afford to film in many locations, and so they decided to have the main location take place in a mysterious warehouse. And I love how this limitation creates a level of claustrophobia for our characters because they're practically stuck in this warehouse, and if they leave, they will be ambushed by the police.
After Mr. Pink and Mr. White discuss about how the heist went wrong and how there is a potential rat in the room, we are soon introduced to Mr. Blondie suspiciously. Our characters talk about how this guy is a psychopath while he drinks his non-copyrighted drink. We see with these discussions that he's kind of a ticking time bomb. Mr. Blondie reveals that he has a kidnapped police officer in this excellent shot.
So Mr. Blonde tortures the cop with copyrighted music and a razor blade. All jokes aside, I love how Mr. Blonde is kind of like the hanging gun on the wall here. We hear a lot about how he is unhinged, and when we finally get to see him tick, it feels very rewarding. Despite of the fact that the torture scene is heavily foreshadowed, it still feels disturbing. It was so disturbing, in fact, that it made Wes Craven, of all people, walk out on this film.
Wait, really? The director of Nightmare on Elm Street found this disturbing. Ironic. Violence is something that is a staple in Tarantino, and it's very clear that he has a lot of fun with violence in his movies. Jan?
Why the need for so much gruesome, graphic violence? Why not let us imagine
Because
a little
it's so
of it?
much fun, Jan. Get it?
Now this is where we get into spoiler territory. So if you've never seen this film, I would highly recommend clicking off this video and watching the movie. Trust me, it's really good. Okay, 3, 2, 1, you have been warned. So I love this film using foreshadowing with props and set dressing. In the background you see 4 jugs, a pink jug and a white jug. which represents our characters, Mr. White and Mr. Pink, and how they're all playing on the same team, while on the other side is an orange jug that represents Mr. Orange, and he's playing solo and is an undercover cop.
So throughout this film, there is constant tension about a supposed rat in the group. And this allows you to make potential candidates out of each of our characters. And when it is revealed that Orange is in fact the rat, it feels 100% earned. On rewatch, when you study this film and Orange's behavior, it all just makes sense. Like how he is so hell-bent on going to the hospital despite of the fact that if he does this, the plan would be completely foiled and everybody would just go to jail. But since he's the rat, that was probably his plan from the beginning. Even though Orange didn't plan on getting shot, it is his end goal to foil this mission at all costs. In the third act of this film, we really get to invest our time in the brains of this operation, and that is Joe the boss and his son, nice guy Eddie. And they piece together that Mr. Orange is in fact the rat. But Mr. White is hesitant, and all this conflict ends in a Mexican standoff, and it is quite the bloody battle.
In the Mexican standoff, as we see, everyone die except Mr. White and Mr. Orange. Kinda. And Mr. Pink surviving? Our fan theory is that Mr. Pink survived the heist and became homeless, though we do see him again in Big Daddy, which means Big Daddy is a sequel to Reservoir Dogs.
After all this carnage, Mr. Orange fesses up to Mr. White, telling him that he is a cop. Heartbroken and betrayed by this, Mr. White puts a gun to Orange's face, killing him. Immediately after that, the cops kill Mr. White. So throughout this film, it is very clear that Mr. White and Mr. Orange have an amount of respect for each other, and they develop a bit of an unlikely friendship. And on the job as an undercover cop, Mr. Orange kind of loses himself to it, becoming a criminal himself. And in his dying breath, he really only had one more thing to do, and that was to tell the truth to the person he has been lying to this entire time. This is an incredibly satisfying, yet dark ending.
Now, our final grades. In my opinion, Reservoir Dogs gets an A+ because of its excellent story, characters, and dialogue.
I agree with you. This is potentially my favorite directorial debut, and for me, it also gets an A+.
The reason why this film doesn't get an S is because there's another film by Quentin Tarantino which I believe is better, and that is, of course, Pulp Fiction. Look forward to our review of Pulp Fiction, which will drop in the near future. Thanks for having me on your show, Ant Hill.
Anyways, I hope you enjoyed our review of Reservoir Dogs. And if you did, make sure to give this video a like. And if you want more content like this, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell notification so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. And shout out to the Leaning Water Tower and to the priests of the Temple of Syrinx. Thanks for watching.